Speedy Gonzalez just returning back from Lubbock for the Gulf Coast Regional Championships. Had a pretty good outing this weekend. The performance of the new Alpha Munitions 6 PPC brass was incredible. The performance was nothing like I've ever seen before in any of the brass I've ever used. I was highly pleased. I'd almost be willing to trade my gold box for the Alpha Munitions 6 PPC brass. So anyways, let's get into some of the guns that we used, and we'll discuss the performance of the brass over the weekend. Okay, let's discuss one of the guns that I used this weekend. You saw the green heavy varmint in the previous video when we introduced the Alpha Munitions 6 PPC brass. This is my sporter rifle. The other one was a heavy varmint, 13.5 pound class that we shoot. This one's a light varmint sporter, 10.5 pound class that we shoot. This is again a March 48 High Master scope, bat rings, the now discontinued bat 3L action, a Bartline 13.65 to 13.5 twist barrel, again a Scarborough stock and a Bixen Andy trigger. The reason I'm showing this gun, this was the last gun that we shot, and I had one of the shooters point out that it looked like I was shooting new brass in the gun. One of the issues that a lot of people have with the bat 3Ls is they've got quite a bit of a bolt lift as compared to the 2 lugs. Especially with a 3 lug, you have a 60-degree bolt lift, so the spring and everything has to compress and cock in a lot shorter distance, as opposed to the 2 lug actions like a bat DS or a bat Model B, Stoll Panda, Farley, any of these others. But anyways, I'll put a couple of pieces of brass in here and let you see how easy it opens. I know you're gonna miss seeing my torso out of the frame, but it's coming. This is a bat 3L action. You can see it's got a very short bolt lift. Typically when I open my bolts, I put my 3 fingers here to hold the stock down to keep it from rolling when I'm shooting, and I'll lift up on the bolt handle and put a piece of brass in it, fire it. You can see this thing just opens just easy. Nothing, no problem at all. Another one. Closes easy. So I'll discuss this brass here a little bit in just 1 second. Let me get back around to the camera. So you probably wonder why I am so impressed with this brass. Well, these 20 pieces of brass that you see here were shot fireformed brass first time. We shot it in a match for a complete aggregate at the club, which I talked about in the previous video. We shot these this time to try to see if we could loosen the primer pockets up on practice last Friday. The last 40 rounds I shot breaking in this new barrel was 40 rounds at 30.4 grains, which gave me a velocity of a little over 3,500 feet per second. I shot the last 40 rounds, 20 of them at 30.4 using Federal 205M primers, and then I shot 20 of those shooting 30.4 grains of powder, my 68 grain boat tail bullets, and the CCI BR4 primers. Every time, regardless of the pressure, the temperature, the bolt just opened like you were shooting a piece of new brass. And there again, that was one of the comments one of the shooters made to me, that he couldn't believe how easy my 3L was opening with brass that had shot that many times. So I shot this 20 pieces now in 3 complete aggregates. I shot the same brass in both guns, my heavy varmint and the sporter that you're looking at here in front of the camera. And at the last match of the last day, pretty close to 100-degree temperature, the bolt just opened just like you fireform your brass for the very first time. I said I could not believe it. Primer pockets still tight. We'll deprime. We'll decap. That's what we'll deprime or decap some rounds here in just a second, as soon as I get this gun out of the way and we can zoom in closer at what we're doing. Okay, I said we had a pretty good performance this weekend with the Alpha Brass. I won the heavy varmint 200 yards. I won the heavy varmint grand. That's the second time that gun is won in competition. Shot small group at 200 yards, both in the club match. If you recall, I shot a 191, which is pretty impressive. His first rattle out of the box. And this weekend, I shot the small group at 200 in the heavy varmint, a 273, which was the small group of the day at the 200. Won some silver. That's 2 troy ounces, another half troy ounce, and our blue patches from the Gulf Coast, plus the first place trophy and the small group trophy. We'll get those out of the way. And then we'll get the real winner, the Alpha Munitions 6 PPC small rifle primer brass. The first thing I want to show you is that after 297 firings, that's, let's see, 297 divided by 20 equals, those rounds have been fired almost 15 times apiece, 14.85. I don't know which one got the 8.5, but they all got it. I'm just gonna pick some of these random out here so you can hear that these primers are still tight in there. Most of the time, after one aggregate, for me, especially when you're shooting in excess of 30 grains, the primers just fall out. Sometimes you can just tap when they come out. Another thing you don't see is a big black ring around that primer where you're getting gas leakage. Every one of these just still, listen, they're still tight in there after all those firings, 15 times a piece approximately. There's not a single one in here that the primer is loose. There's quite a bit of force required to push this out. What really surprised me was typically the Federal 205Ms, the brass around the cup is a little bit thinner than what you see with the CCI BR4s. Those were actually, at 30.4 grains, harder to eject than the BR4s. That must be what they mean by that OCD, optimized case head technology. Whatever it is, the primers have never loosened up in their almost 15 rounds of firing. We'll do a little sizing here, a little measuring. Let me get my, I think I had a piece of brass. Yeah. Here's a brass that I scribed the line at the 200 mark so we could measure it. I'll measure it first with the calipers. So that's set on 0. I'll just measure with digital calipers just to see what we approximately get, then I'll measure it with a micrometer. So at the head at 200, I'm getting about 238 thousandths. Let's see what the new piece of brass is. Let me scribe a 200 line on here real quick. 200. There we go. Let me just scribe a 200 line so I can see where I'm at. And then we'll measure there. With the calipers, I'm getting about 436 thousandths. And the fire brass with calipers at the same line, 437. So about 2 thousandths difference. We've had about 200,000, I mean 2 thousandths head expansion on this, and I say it's going to expand into the chamber. That's not too bad. Let's see what this is at the shoulder. Approximately, the alpha brass is 420 thousandths. Let me get another reading. I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. Now we're at the shoulder. Let me do it backwards so I can see at the flat of the jaws right here. Approximately 424 thousandths. And again, I'm just measuring one case. Here's one of my fired ones, and it measures 429,000. So that's about 2,000 under what your reamer spec is. On the shoulder of most PPC cases, 431,000. So let's size a couple of these babies and see what we get. Let me measure this one more time with the micrometer. So here at the shoulder with the micrometer, I'm getting 427 and 1/10, 427 and 1/10. And the fired brass, oops, 431 1. So there's a little bit difference between the micrometer and the calipers. 431 1. 431 1. So like I said, your reamer spec says 431, and I said the reamer's cut a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. That's why you have to set your own chambers up. So let's size a couple of pieces. Oh, I was gonna measure the head. At 200 mark, we're getting 440.4, 440.5, 440.5, 440.45, 440.45, 440.45. And the alpha unfired, 438.4, 438.4, 438.35, 448.35, 448.4, 438.4, and 438.4. So about 2,000 expansion on the head compared to the fired one. Let's measure one of these. Let's measure that one that's got the banana. I don't like that one. Let's measure one of these. This one's 440.3, 440.4, 440.3. This one was again fired 440.3 or 4. So these two are the same. Let's size it. This actually isn't pure Imperial sizing wax. It's about half Imperial sizing wax, half of Gary Conaway's bullet making lube. It's just a lot slicker when you mix the two together. I warm this up, pour about half of it into another container, then I fill the other half up with Gary Conaway's bullet making lube. We'll leave a phone number and an email for Gary. And then I mix half and half, warm it back up with a little propane torch, and just stir it and then let it sit. It's just super, super slick. Put a little on the neck, a little on the body. Put in my dye, go out slowly. So, on the shoulder we had 431.1, 431.15, 431.1. So let's see what the shoulder is after we've sized it with my die. It's about 430.5, 0.1. So we're sizing it 430. Sizing it just a thousandths or a thousandths in a tenth. You're on that taper right there, so it doesn't take much to get off of that. 430. 430, so we're sizing the shoulder about a thousandth smaller in diameter. And this was 440, I believe. 440.3. And this is approximately 439, 439, 439.1, 439, 439.1, and this was 438. So our size brass is about 1,000 smaller on the shoulder and about 1,000 smaller on the head with my sizing die. So that puts it right halfway, really almost exactly halfway in between the brass as it comes from Alpha and the fired brass in my chamber. So, I mean, it seems to work great for that. If somebody would like a copy of my print, I'll get it out and put it on the description below the video, so that if y'all want it seems to work great with this brass right here. Like I said, didn't have any problem. The size die, I would probably go, like I said, with mine. I use 2/1000ths again. I don't know why I can't say that today. 2/1000ths under my reamer size all the way down the body. So it looks like there might be a little spring back on there, but it seems to be working pretty good. So that's that. You saw that after 397 firings, the brass still goes in and out of the gun. Cycle's great. Like I said, I don't know how long I can use this brass. I unfortunately sold it to a gentleman who was at the match that wanted to see how far he could take it after I was through it. So it's going to be packaged up in just a minute, loaded rounds and all. Oh, just in case you're wondering, I'm sized. I've got a 269 neck in my gun. I'm turning the brass, the wall thickness to 11.9, and I'm using a 265 bushing initially to start off with, and then I can transition to a 264.5 and a 264 to give you quite a bit of neck tension. It seems like the N133 requires quite a bit more neck tension than they used to. Everybody's always heard that I use 1 to 2,000 neck tension. Well, with the N133, seems like it requires somewhere around 4,000 neck tension. Not really quite what we're used to doing with my tea powder. Back in the old days, it was 1 to 2,000. If you went much more than that, it kind of blew up on you. So anyways, that's it. We'll post all these links below, and we'll see you next time. Keep them small. And we'll discuss the performance of the brass over the weekend. I'll get that. Yeah.